So we've got Nick here now, and she's just going to give us a little bit of an insight into her time with me. And we're going to look at what her journey's been like, and she's just going to share some insights for you. So welcome, Nick. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about you, a bit about just generally your background.
Yeah, so I have been in the Northwest for quite a while now. I've been here for 9 years. I moved across for work, so I work at the safari park in Aussie Safari, and I work on the engagement and learning team there. So I do a little bit of the education, a little bit of the research, a little bit of the conservation, and I've sort of worked my way up the ranks there. So I'm now operations manager there, which is really exciting. I don't have sort of family over this way, so kind of a lot of my support comes from friend groups and things that are in the local area. But I have kind of quite an active, quite a stressful job, and sort of was generally into fitness as a sort of a younger person, if you like. Kind of I did go to the gym quite regularly, but had fallen out of that sort of in the last. Well, post-COVID is what I used to say. I used to say that I'd kind of fallen out of the routine after COVID, but
didn't we all?
Exactly. Yeah, I think it became an excuse more than a justification, I think.
Okay, fair enough. And what was going on sort of before you reached out? What were you struggling with the most?
So I think for me, there was two aspects of my life that I was really sort of struggling, and they were feeding into each other and making each other worse, something in a vicious cycle. So work was becoming quite stressful. It was becoming quite overwhelming for me. I felt that it was quite it was taking all of my energy was in work, and was sort of justifying myself making those decisions. The way I felt about who I was in work was quite negative as well. And then that fed into my personal life. So I think because I'd strive to do so much in work, I'd ignored all the other aspects of my life. So my fitness, my health, anything sort of personal life, romance, anything like that, I'd sort of very much taken a back position, a back burner. And it wasn't something that I was focusing on, but equally then that was also a drain for me, because I wasn't investing in myself in any sort of way, and I wasn't allowing myself that space to do things that brought me joy as well. I think I was so focused on the negatives, and those negatives kept me in that cycle. So I think for me it was all just coming to a head, to the point where I was starting to see it affect my physical health, and sort of how I process day-to-day activities as well. It was affecting how I was in work, how good I was at my job as well. And I think that's what made me sort of reach out.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about day-to-day stuff there, but how is it impacting? Because we talked a lot about your mind to begin with, didn't we? Yeah. How is that really impacting your mind? What was going on a day-to-day basis in here?
So in my head, I had a very negative inner voice, and a lot of the kind of narratives, if you like, a lot of what I was saying to myself was very negative. So it was very much doubting myself in work. I'm not good at my job. I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody's going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to get the sack. Your team don't respect you. Your team don't think that you're good at your job either. You are going to run this sort of department into the ground. You're not going to be able to uphold it. And it sort of all then coincided as well with my boss handing a notice in, which then just sort of made all that worse, because then I wasn't going to have that big figurehead of our head of department helping me along the way as well. In my personal life, it was very much that I was lazy. I didn't have any motivation. I knew what was good for me, but was choosing not to do it. And that, I was sort of, my friends didn't like me for who I was. They were just pretending to like me. They were just sort of placating me, if you like. And the reason that I wasn't going on any dates or doing anything romance-wise, because nobody actually really wanted to be anywhere near me, and nobody would like me for who I was. And also that, all the classic things I think you get as a woman with your negative inner voice, that, you're fat, you're ugly, you're unfunny, you're irritating, you're too loud. All those sorts of things were very much what my inner narrative was. That's what my brain was telling me. And so that's how I sort of carried myself day to day. I was sort of always trying to make myself smaller, always trying to punish myself, always thinking negatively about every interaction I'd had, to the point where I would spend most of my day overthinking any interactions I'd had, whether that be in work, whether that be in my personal life. That overthinking would take up most of my evening, to the point where, to distract myself, I would very much turn to screens. So, the doom scrolling, just shoving something on the telly and just sitting and not doing anything, which obviously then would affect my physical health as well. And then that just became worse and worse and worse. So it was a very negative place to live inside my head before I started with you.
And had you tried anything previously to try and help yourself with any of that?
Sort of, yeah. So I think, obviously, previously I have had quite a good fitness regime. I've had quite a good healthy eating regime, but those have always come from a place of punishment. In my head, it was always that negative voice that was pushing me. So I had to eat healthy because I looked disgusting, and I needed to eat better because, you're going to die at 35 otherwise. You need to go to the gym because nobody's going to think you're attractive if you don't go to the gym and make yourself look nicer, or make yourself look smaller at least. And I think in work that was then negatively impacting me as well, because I was using work as a punishment almost as well. So kind of doing longer hours, trying to do more than I was needed to do, overthinking every decision I had made or every interaction I had had, and therefore not trusting my own judgment and not trusting the decision that I had made in the first place. And then also, obviously, because then I'm overthinking it and I'm going backtracking on almost my decisions, I didn't come across as a very confident leader within the team either. So I think for me, I had tried things, but they'd always come from that negative space. It'd always come from that negative motivation of, you've got to do it, or this terrible thing is going to happen, or you've got to do it because of your being a terrible person, rather than it being from any sort of positives or looking at the positives in any sort of way.
Okay. And what was it that made you kind of reach out at that point? Like, sort of, why then?
Yeah, it came to the end of summer. So it was summer last year. And I had spent that entire summer hiding my body in clothes that I didn't think looked nice on me or fit me. Spending a lot of time indoors, not a lot actually going out and doing things with friends, because I didn't think I deserved them, would enjoy them. I would just spend the entire time overthinking why I was there and who liked me and who didn't like me and what I looked like and all those sorts of things. I wasn't actually present in the moment. And also then obviously coming back into work post-summer into September, I think for me, I just very much thought, I don't know, because it's a new academic year for us in the teaching side of things. I didn't know if I could do another year of that, and I didn't know how long I would be able to sustain that mindset. And I think I just thought, this is clearly not working. This system of punishing yourself and trying to push yourself and shout yourself into doing something is not working. So what other alternatives are there? What other ways are there? Let's have a look. Let's see what else the other options are. And I think it was a social media post that Mind Body Boutique Empire had put on, both that combined a little bit about the gym and how that worked, and then also a little bit about negative self-talk. And it was a video that you'd popped on that had been shared onto their page, that was essentially talking about, you said some really horrible things like, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, you're horrible, you're not good enough. I've just said all these things to my daughter. And it sort of got that visceral reaction of, oh my God, that's horrible, that's awful. And then in the video, you very much flipped it on your head and was like, that's how you talk to yourself. You would never dream of talking to somebody else like that. So why do you talk to yourself like that? And I think it sort of just, it awakened something. It made me look at how I was speaking to myself and how I was treating myself, and think about that a little bit more and think about the impact that was having. And I think for me, that then meant that I understood better that why, I'm a lovely person because I would never say something to somebody like that. So why am I trying to convince myself otherwise of being a horrible person? And then also, if you're speaking to yourself like that, how are you going to improve? How are you going to get better? Where are you expecting that to take you? Because it's not worked so far. So what's got to change? And that for me was the thing that's got to change. Is it's clearly my negative self-talk is the thing that is fueling all the things in my life that I think are wrong or that are not working out or that I'm not happy with. So let's have a chat. And I think that's when I responded to that post, and that's when I booked in with you to kind of have a chat through what that might look like, have a chat through kind of what that would mean for me, and therefore what things I could potentially do and change within my lifestyle and my mindset.
Brilliant. And what has changed then since then?
Oh wow!
Where do we start?
Exactly. It sounds dramatic to say, but I feel like an entirely different person. And there are definitely times when I sit and think about it, or when I'm sitting down and I'm counting my wins when I'm journaling or anything like that, and I do get a little bit emotional because the way I was thinking about myself and the way I was speaking to myself last summer is completely different to how I speak about myself and to myself now. I think for me, I've examined that with your help and your support. I've examined that sort of negative self-talk and where that's coming from, and why I feel that way. Where's the evidence for me feeling that way? I've examined a little more of like how that negative self-talk is impacting me and what benefits, if you like to call them that's reaping, and then flipping those negatives on their head. So a really good activity that you made me do for our first session, which was physically stepping out of myself and pretending that the person sat there saying those negative things was somebody I love, somebody I care about. And I think that was an exercise that for me really made worlds of difference, because I think I would never dream of speaking to my best friend or my sister like that. So to be able to sort of physically take myself out really made all that difference of, well, you would never speak to somebody else like that, so why do you think that's acceptable to speak to yourself like that? Between that and then reframing negative thoughts, so instead of the I can'ts and I shouldn'ts, the well, what can I do to make sure that I can set myself up for success in that particular area? That has made the world of difference. So I'm more confident in work. I trust my decisions. I will speak up in meetings that I would dread to walk into, never mind speak up in. I involve myself in conversations now that I know I should be involved in, rather than sitting on the peripheral, not really trusting to speak up or trusting myself to say something. In my personal life, I am more confident than I have ever been in every aspect of my life. I still get negative self-talk. I still encounter those negative spirals, but for me, I am much quicker now at recognising what they are, identifying for me if there is any evidence for how I'm feeling, and if there is sort of anything that I can do to reframe that thought in a different way. So, if you don't know that information, is there a way you can find out that information? If you can't do that thing, is there a way that you can help yourself make it easier to do that thing? Sort of setting up those routines as well to make sure that I have that stability. And I think for me personally, I now feel a lot better about both who I am as a person in work and in personal life, but also how I show up for myself as well. So even when I do have those negative days, or I have those days where I'm overthinking a little bit, that I can recognise it for what it is and put in place those strategies to make sure that I am not going down those negative spirals quite as deeply or quite as often.
Yeah, and I think there's been a couple of times along that journey where it's maybe you've had a week where you've had a wobble and you've spiraled, and then the next time you did it, it was a few days, and then the next time it was 24 hours, and you could see that you were going through that process, and it was really, really good to watch you have that independence and actually use those tools for yourself, which is really good. So if you were talking to somebody who was maybe sitting on the fence, who's maybe watching this and thinks, oh yeah, that there's a lot of that I can resonate with, what would you say to them?
I think it feels scary when you're sitting on the fence, when you're not sure, because it feels like quite a big commitment, and it also feels like it's going to be quite a lot of work mentally. But I think if you're resonating with anything that I'm saying, or if you recognise these sort of behaviours or these sort of negative self-talk patterns within yourself, for me, the thing that pushed me over the edge to sort of just take the leap and to do it was, both of these things are hard. Having this negative cheerleader, this negative self-talk, this negative narrative, beating myself up all the time, using punishment as my motivator, is hard. It's draining. It's difficult. It was really difficult some days to want to get up and do certain things, to go to work. That was causing me quite a lot of mental stress, and it was hard. It was hard. Taking that leap, doing the work, putting in those strategies is also hard. Even, you know, to the point of coming to the gym, making sure that I'm doing that regularly, making sure that I'm eating healthily, you know, making sure that I'm making those changes and putting in place those positive habits is hard. Choose your hard.
Yeah.
Because for me, they're both, one, I have found, although it seems like a big mountain to climb, choosing that positive side and choosing that positive journey to take that leap and book in with yourself, it feels like a big commitment, but once you're in it, it's so much more manageable. It's not as big and scary as you think. And the impact that it has and the way it changes the way you view yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way that you move through your journey in life makes so much of a massive positive difference that I would never look back on that and think that I regretted it. Like you just level up. And that's what it feels like, is you feel like you've leveled up.
And what's been great is because you've obviously got the package where you've got the gym membership and the app, and you've done a little bit of work with one of the PTs as well, and you've joined the whole Mind Body Beauty community, haven't you?
Definitely.
So just tell me a little bit about that as well, because obviously that's, some people would be like maybe online clients because they live too far away, but if people are local, they've got the opportunity to be a part of this whole community as well. So tell me a little bit about that and what that's like.
It's like having a family away from home, because as I mentioned, my family are back in Yorkshire, so they're quite a far away. But for me, anytime where I'm having a little bit of a wobble, like we've had before, when I've kind of gone through those stages of finding myself in those negative spirals, I know I've got the tools that you've helped to give me as part of these sessions, but I also know I've got that community support there. So it is like having a whole group of cheerleaders that are on your side, that even on the days where you don't think you're great and you don't think you're worthy or you don't think you deserve these nice things, there is a whole group of girls that are screaming that you definitely deserve all those things, and they are cheering you on, and they are there to comfort you in the times when you might be feeling a little bit rubbish and you might be feeling a little bit sad, and you might have having a rough time of it for one reason or another, but they're 100% behind you, and they want to be there for you. They want to include you. I think there's never been a day when I've walked into the Mind Body Beauty Empire hub, if you like, here, where, you know, I might have had a bad day, it might have been particularly stressful, it might have been some things going on outside of work, some things going inside of work, but I've come here and my mood is instantly lifted. And I think that's what makes the difference, is it's such a lovely community, and it feels electric when you're in here. It's impossible to be in a bad mood when you've come away from this space.
And what about when you know, if you kind of, I don't know whether you were worried about going in and working out in the gym initially, but there are some people who think, oh, going into a gym, I'm quite daunted. What would you say it's like going into that gym for the first time?
Yeah, I definitely would say that I was massively insecure. I was terrified of walking into a gym, because I think my only experience previously of gyms has been in commercial gyms, kind of big 24-hour massive buildings where you don't make eye contact with anybody. And I think for me, the fear is always that I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to be that strong. I'm not that fit. And, you know, you're potentially going to stick out in a room like that. With the gym here, there's always somebody to help you out. So if you're not sure how to use something, or you're not sure if you're doing something right, there's always somebody in this building that will help you out, that will show you how to do it. If you are conscious of walking in and not knowing people, as soon as you walk in that room, as soon as somebody asks you your name, you're already part of that community. People will talk to you quite happily, and they will welcome you, and they'll want to know you, they'll want you to feel included. And I think that's the thing, is we were absorbed into the gym, and even though I walked in sort of quite self-conscious, not really knowing what I was doing, not really knowing what to do when I was in the gym, I had the app to follow, so I knew exactly what I was going to be doing, exactly what was expected of me day to day, and I knew that the PTs would then check to make sure that I was doing everything correctly. They would kind of help with any advice, anything like nutrition wise that I needed help with. And I think just in terms of being in that space, it is so welcoming and so friendly. It's impossible to feel like you don't belong in there. And I think it's just, even though I was terrified of walking in the first time, I'm here almost every day now.